Hello, North Central Washington, and welcome to Networked. I'm your host, Jenny Rojanasatian, and today I'm excited to have two guests join me on air in the studio. My first guest will be JC Baldwin, president of GTC Technical Support, who's been providing technical support services to clients for almost 2 decades. GTC offers a wide range of services and specializes in providing customized support and technical solutions to meet businesses' needs. Then we're going to shift gears as I invite Laura Merrill, Executive Services Director for the City of Wenatchee, who's going to share some exciting information on the city's Confluence Parkway project, which will be soon underway. Don't go far. It's going to be a really fun show right here on the NCW Life channel. Well, welcome to Network. I'm so excited to introduce my first guest, JC Baldwin, president of GTC Technical Support. Welcome, JC.
Thank you.
And you've been a great friend to me to many years. A little side fact, JC helped connect me to NCW Tech Alliance way back in 2015, which led to me being a part of the nonprofit, you a board member. So excited to spend some time with you and to have our audience get to know you a little bit better.
Very good.
So you were also a port commissioner for the Chelan Douglas Regional Port Authority, which we'll talk maybe a little bit about at the end here. But first, I'd love for you to introduce your background. You have an incredible tech background. Share that with us.
Oh, gee. Well, that would be like pages of resumes to come through. I started, actually, my degree is in sales and marketing, but growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area, there was more, and growing up there in the 70s and the 80s, now that I just dated myself, Silicon Valley was growing. It was bursting apart at the seams. The orchards were being replaced with tilt-ups and tech companies were moving in. And so it was just sort of a natural thing. It's what the now millennials would do then. And we bounced around with different tech companies. So I've worked for a lot of startups, which was really great. One of those startups led me to Washington State in the early 80s. And shortly after I arrived here, I was recruited by a little company that lived under the bridge, on 520 Bridge, called Microsoft. And
just a little company.
Just a little company at the time, and it was back in the 80s, early 80s, and worked with them for several years, doing various things, everything from doing customer service with their, with their government accounts to training their sales staff. But I learned a lot, as you do with startups. One of the ones I worked for in California, I developed a national call center for them, which gave me the experience to do what I ended up doing here in Central Washington with GTC.
Yeah, I was going to say, so kind of the fast forward, becoming an entrepreneur, you left kind of not only the startup world, but a very stable technology field, right?
Right.
Obviously, Microsoft grew. Those are stable careers. And then decided to not only start your own company, but start it here in Wenatchee. What was the reason you jumped with GTC in 1999?
Oh, geez. There was actually in this very building, or in downtown Wenatchee, at the very least, a company called Televar. That was one of the first internet service providers in Central Washington, and I had an opportunity to work with them and work with them in developing a call center. Saw the need for, with their tech support mostly. I wasn't actively involved in their call center at the time. I did sales for them, but saw the need for internet service providers in this area and how the internet was growing. Right. Televar actually, when it moved into the internet business, that it purchased a 300 provider company, which literally was run by 2 guys out of the airport. Right. Yeah. And all their equipment was in a closet out there. And Televar purchased it as one of their value added services. And it quickly became their main product because the internet was growing so quickly. Even then, it was, however, dial-up service. And a little bit of DSL, so it was not as sophisticated as what we have today. And then I had a small child at the time and took an opportunity to back out of that and take a deep breath. And when I did, I had friends asking me, "Gee, what would your next step be if you wanted to do something? And I said, well, certainly not be an ISP because they, it's a struggle. But maybe being the brick and mortar piece of it, doing some support. And I already had experience with a call center for a very large computer firm, and thought that might be a nice challenge. So I actually started the company with two other people originally. And they both had as startups do, they had other career opportunities, so they left, and it was me. And so we moved it forward from there. And I've had some folks with me from day one. Yeah.
I love your story, the story of GTC. You built your company here. But I think what a lot of people don't know is a lot of your customers are actually outside of the area, right? Yes. So this is you service local companies for their call center needs, but you're really nationwide.
We are. Actually, we're international because we have clients in Canada as well. I try not to get too far international because then I have language barrier issues. And we like to remain and say we're a US-based call center, which we are. But yes, probably for the first 10 years we were in business, I actually did not want to do any business locally. I wanted to make sure we stayed out of the area. And I had various reasons for doing that. But we do support probably a half a dozen clients now locally, but the bulk of my business is all throughout the United States. I'm part of a national organization that works with telecom, broadband, internet providers, and we are one of a half a dozen call centers that work with them. We're the only one of the few call centers. I think there's only two of us in the U.S., maybe three, that have been around as long as we have, which is we incorporated in 99, so 23 years this year. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on 23 years in business. And I think your story too of building a technology-based company and what actually is such a guiding light for so many other businesses, because you proved 23 years ago that you could have a technology-focused business here and bring an outside business to the area.
Right.
And you don't have to be in a metropolitan.
You do not. No, you just have to have good partners supporting you and that you work with. And we have very good partners from day one. Our very best partner has been LocalTel. They're our backbone. They are our infrastructure, and we work very closely with them. And it's very difficult to market for a product like this, especially when you're going internationally. There just aren't publications, or there weren't then. So we just had to watch the industry stay very dynamic and pivot as the industry pivoted, which was, sometimes weekly.
Technology changes fast.
It changes very quickly.
Yes. Well, I would love to go. You provided some content for me in advance, so I appreciate that. So if anyone who's on the fence about outsourcing technical support for their business, call center support, a tech line, what advice would you give them?
Well, there's two things, two of our major selling points. One is a lot of internet service providers will choose to do their own internet support, technical support. For a smaller organization, it can be a real deal killer for their business and their growth, because they don't ever understand how much time, their valuable time, they're spending on support when they could be investing that time in their growth and marketing and developing their products further. They don't know that, and it's always apparent with those smaller organizations. We love growing with them because it gives us an opportunity to grow with them. We become part of their organizations, but until they actually see 2 or 3 months worth of tech support, we're a per minute company. Everything we do is in the moment. We bill per minute, we log everything per minute, and they'll come back at us and say, "Oh, I need to see reports. I can't believe we're doing these many minutes in tech support." And they'll see some of the reporting data that comes back to them, and they're just amazed at how much time they were spending on tech support. Then they start realizing how much more time they have to grow their businesses. So that's their first point of pain that we deal with. And then for the larger clients, and we have clients that are in acquisition mode. They come to us in acquisition mode. They're already a larger organization that's buying other organizations. This has been really happening quite a bit in the last 2 years during the pandemic. This industry's thrived.
Yeah.
And so they don't have the capacity when they're buying other organizations. Some have outsourced here or there, or people transition out of these positions, out of tech support positions. We have a stable base that runs 24/7. And we've never really had any trouble staffing here. We have people that we pull out of the college that relocate here that want to be in this gorgeous part of the state, right? So we always have staffing available. So it takes away the pain and the headache of trying to staff, and it helps them while they're in growth mode to not have to worry about that part of their business, to get their acquisitions in place and do whatever they're positioning for next.
Well, I think you hit a key point there that I want to highlight again. You have 24-hour operations.
Yes.
And so for those businesses who might need their customer to be able to call a 1-800 number if they have a question or a problem or something goes down, you can relieve them of having that obligation.
Absolutely.
Which is a huge time saver.
Right.
And also really important for customer satisfaction too, which helps companies grow. I want to shift just for a second because we only have so much time with you. So GTC, first, how can people get in touch with you? So before we talk a little bit about the port, I'd love if someone was listening today, needs some support, what's their first step for reaching out?
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to just say our support isn't limited just to broadband and service providers. We also support. We'll do anything that touches tech support or touches technology. We work with catalog ordering companies. We work with pet finding companies. We do non-emergent calls for the medical industry. You know, we'll do anything that has a piece of technology attached to it, and we're available 24/7. That said, you can find us at www.ygtc.com or our 800 number is 888-2000, area code 509. You can do that. And I'm trying to remember my 800 number, 877-948. I can't remember, 2247, I think. But just look us up through the internet at GTC Technical Support, and you'll find us.
Awesome. So I know they'll be able to connect with you there. Just want to briefly say, well, first of all, thank you for your public service work. So in addition to being an entrepreneur, you serve our community as a port commissioner. And I'm going to be talking with Laura Merrill next about the Confluence Parkway, but there's just a lot of exciting projects right now happening across the region. What would you tell viewers listening today just about, the future ahead? What are you kind of excited about in this year?
Oh, gee.
So I'm sure there's so many things, so hard to
There
encapsulate.
are so many things. There's so much going on here. This is really the place to be right now. I think we've seen an influx with the hybrid working environment over the last 2 years. We've seen an influx of folks working from other parts of the country and other parts of our state, being able to relocate here. And I think it's a surprise to them to understand the not just the attributes of working in a beautiful place, but we have the technology here to support pretty much any industry, right? And so we're ripe for new development and growth, economic growth. And it's happening here. It really is. The Confluence Parkway project is particularly exciting. That's a 5-year effort where a community has come together and made something happen. And kudos to Mayor Kuntz and the city for driving that. But he's had a lot of partners in that as well. I also sit on the Transportation Council. They've been big players in that, not to mention all the cities. Everybody understands the need in the north end of town to alleviate some of the traffic from the growth that we have experienced from the influx of individuals coming in here. And the visioning that's behind that. We're doing it right. We're taking the time to strategize and vision here locally. And I don't know if that specifically answers your question.
That was perfect. That was such a great setup. So thank you, JC. And thank you again for coming on air today. It's been so fun to have you.
It has been my pleasure. It's always good to see you and be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to dive more into the Confluence Parkway project, so don't go far. All right, welcome back to part 2 of Networked. I'm excited to introduce our second guest today, Laura Merrill, who is the Executive Services Director for the City of Wenatchee. Welcome to Networked.
Thank you for having me.
Really excited. Our first time having you on air, so thank you for making the time. I'd love, we're going to talk a lot about the Confluence Parkway project that JC, Baldwin, and I were just talking about. But first, I'd love for you to introduce yourself. You are fairly new to the community.
I'm fairly new, yes. Although I will say
There's like an asterisk because of COVID, right?
Okay. I'm fairly new, but I've also known that there's so many people coming to this community. I joked around yesterday. I feel like a veteran. I feel like I actually know what I'm doing here.
Yes.
But I'm a total newbie. 2 years. I moved in late November, but I started with the city in early 2020. So I started in February, and then in March we told everyone to go home and. Really adjusted through the pandemic, but we've continued to do a lot of great work during that time. I think we were able to adjust fairly quickly and continue to do good work.
Absolutely. I mean, the city, while maybe we were all at home and not interacting the same way, was hosting city council on Zoom and very active behind the scenes the past 2 years. Tell me a little bit about your role as executive services. What does that entail?
So executive services director, it's kind of a hybrid of a chief of staff, overseeing public programs and policy. I really work closely with the mayor and the city council to make sure that any high level sensitive projects like Confluence Parkway are moving forward. I also collaborate a lot with the different departments. There are certain things that don't fall well within each department, and so when there's cross collaboration that's needed, I am typically a part of those conversations. Sometimes we just need a little extra help and capacity, and I'm there to do that. I'm there to support the departments, but that also helps me kind of keep an eye on everything that's going on in the city to help the mayor and the council kind of do their jobs as well, to support them and the information that they need.
And the city of Wenatchee, it's a big staff. You've got a big team with obviously a big workload too across the various departments.
Yeah, I think for this year's budget we're at 185. We don't typically get to that, just with retirements and so on and so forth. But that's still, we're one of the biggest employers here from local government. We've got a full city. I just met with the chief of police this morning. So we've got a police department, public works, community development, water, sewer, utilities. That's in itself a whole world that I'm still learning about. Engineering. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah. And you're not slowing down because you're bringing on new projects. So tell me about the Confluence Parkway project. What is it?
Confluence Parkway. So this has really been a huge priority from the city's perspective, but also regionally. So it's a transportation project. Okay. The easiest way to explain it at its base is a new road.
Okay.
Right. And so it's a new road that will help add capacity to North Wenatchee Avenue. So if you've driven along North Wenatchee Avenue, it gets a little congested. It goes from about 4 lanes down to the 2. And then as you continue to go further up, it gets a little bit more cramped with the different like the turns and stuff that are along the corridor. So through transportation planning efforts, Confluence Parkway was invented. It was kind of, hey, we need more places to move people and things. And so this was the alternative that was selected. We recently got money, quite a bit of money, $135 million for the project.
Which is a huge win for all of us, as I'm a resident of Wenatchee. It's a huge win for our community.
Yes.
And really spearheaded by Mayor Kuntz, who's really passionate about bringing this project to life.
Absolutely. I don't know who could have done it other than him. I mean, honestly, just the last couple of weeks, especially working through the Move Ahead transportation package and trying to get the funding into that, it's really great to be able to work with him. And again, I don't think anybody else could have done it.
Yeah.
He's been fantastic and a big advocate for our community. But yeah, so at its base, it's a road. But this new road provides a new place for regional bus transit. So that's a huge thing for Link to be able to move their customers. It also will have new bike lanes. So for our folks that like to cycle in and out of town. But then it'll also improve the Apple Capitol Loop Trail. So we did a tour last weekend or a couple weekends ago to go out there and just walk the site and show the community what that looks like. I run that loop all the time. It's very beloved to me and to a lot of people in this community. And one of the things that the mayor has always mentioned is we need to improve whatever we touch. And it's a $10 million improvement to the Apple Capitol Loop Trail. So wider, new pedestrian bridge, It'll no longer be on the street, so it's a much safer experience. So again, this isn't just a road, even though that's the simplest way to explain it.
It's a really complex.
Yes.
And it's not going to be overnight. Tell us a little bit about the timeline for this project.
Right. So, it is about 2.5 miles of construction or of, improvements.
Yeah.
And so we will start this year. So McKittrick Street, right now, currently kind of T intersections at North Wenatchee and McKittrick. McKittrick will actually go through to the east and connect to existing Holly and Miller Street. And so that work will actually start this year.
Okay.
That underpass is funded by the federal money that we got, the $92 million that we got. That connects to the new bypass. So you'll start seeing stuff happening, but we're still designing the full project. Right now, we're actually in the middle of our environmental assessment, and we're working with the PUD very closely to acquire the lands that we need for the project because, as I mentioned, it will impact the Apple Capitol Loop Trail. So long term, I would say it's a 6 to 10 year project. It's a new bridge over the river. That's a huge piece of a capital project as well. But it's I keep going back to it's funded, and so it's happening. It's coming,
and funded by outside dollars.
Yes,
which I think is a big speaking point for our community. Know that these are state and federal dollars being brought into the city,
right,
to do all of this development work, and wouldn't be possible without community leaders at every level advocating for those dollars.
Absolutely. It is not easy to get an infra award. You really, it took us 4 years to apply and refine the project a little bit more. But, throughout that time, it was the region's number one transportation project. It was also part of the Our Valley, Our Future plan. It was identified as one of the priorities. Even in the latest plan, which just got released for 2022 for the next 5 years, it's still included in there as, again, the community's priority and something that they want to see. They want to see investment in infrastructure. So none of this money could have came here without an immense amount of advocacy and community support.
Yep. And you mentioning 4 years. This is not an overnight, oh, boom, we're doing a new project.
Right.
This has been years in planning.
Yeah.
And then we'll take, of course, several years to actually fully develop and come to life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're right. It starts with planning an idea, identifying a problem. Here's what we think it is. Where else could it go? Nope. Here's where it goes. What does that mean? What are the impacts? That's kind of where we are right now. Okay, now we've got the funding, because you have to be able to show kind of a vetted project to be able to get the funding.
Right.
And then it's start construction. But even then, the community still will be involved. We still have to get to a place where we actually have designed the loop trail. What does that look like? What kind of amenities do we want to see? What kind of things do we want to incorporate in the trail? The type of lighting, the aesthetics. So there's still a lot of decisions to be made and a lot of work to be done, but it's nice to know that we know what's next and we know that it's happening. And so we're building our teams to get the work done.
What is the best way for people to stay up to date on what's happening and participate in opportunities for feedback? Like you just did, I think, some surveys on art installations.
Yeah.
Where should residents watching right now learn more? How can they stay connected?
Our Facebook or our website, it's wenatcheewa.gov. We have lots of information on there. You can also sign up to be on our mailing lists, so you can do email notifications for specific things.
Since 1999, NCW Tech Alliance has served as our regional hub for technology innovation. As a 501c3, their nonprofit mission is to connect people and technology resources to create a thriving community. You can network with the team and guests from today's show by visiting them at www.ncwtech.org.